And welcome back to Nerd News Today Toy Fair 2021. And joining us now on the other side of the screen, we have from ZICA Toys. He is the head honcho responsible for all the figures coming from the company. We've got Mr. Craig Owen. Craig, how are you today?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. So, first things first, what was your favorite toy growing up?
Well, growing up, actually, I had a lot of the 12-inch GI Joes.
Oh, nice.
The toys I played with the most would have been the Kenner Star Wars toys when they came out. That was probably the one I had the most of.
Those are really great toys. So, the thing that ZICA Toys is right now known the most for, I think, is the Sectaurs toy. So, I'm wondering, as a child, when did that start to fit into your life?
Actually, when Sectaurs came out, I was already in college, but I remember seeing the toys on the shelves. I know that unfortunately that line was kind of short-lived, but just to kind of stuck in my head as a pretty unique line. So fast forward to probably about 3 years ago when I was looking for properties to develop, Sectars came to mind, and I contacted the IP holder and went from there, and at least got wave one out. No, actually a second, a wave 1.5, which was a repaint wave, but the line was well received. I was very happy with how it turned out. So it's just unfortunate that the wave two didn't make it.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the lines in a few minutes because you guys have a few different IPs that you're working on. But
Mhm.
I'm curious if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about what your background is in toys. Were you always working in the toy industry, or is this something you kind of came into as a side gig that's ultimately maybe taken over?
Initially I started with just doing small custom projects. Then that moved into actually opened up a toy store here in Falmouth, a small toy store, collectible toy store. And from there, it kind of evolved into me actually wanting to get into the business and develop toys, have them produced in China, and kind of went from there. So that's where I'm at now.
That sounds like a heck of a learning process too, to be going from one thing to another like that and have to go through this entire, basically learning a whole new career.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's definitely been a learning experience. And for the most part, I hate to say it, it's not been the best learning experience, I guess I should say, when dealing with China and these factories. Unless you have a very reliable contact over there, or someone that you know you can trust that maybe doesn't live over there but has already formed a relationship with one of these factories, you're very much at risk in dealing with them. And I found that out the hard way actually more than once. But luckily now the factory I'm with, they're doing a fantastic job. I'm very happy with them, and moving forward, I don't foresee there being any more nightmare experiences.
So yeah, let's start talking about the Sectors because that's really the big license that Zyka has. That's the big thing for you guys. So first things first, for people who are uneducated about the Sectors, so what the heck are they?
Well, again, they were originally released by Coleco Toys back in the 80s. They're kind of supposed to be a race of hybrid insect humans. You've got the good, the Shining Realm and the Dark Domain. That's the two factions that are fighting over Symbion. Again, I didn't. I remember the toys as a kid. I had some of the comic books. It actually was a Marvel comic book, which is where two of the Troop Builder characters came from. They were originally characters in the Marvel comics. They were never offered in the original line. I just kind of took that and ran with it. And again, it's unfortunate that the original line didn't do as well as you would have anticipated, especially since it came out, excuse me, close to the time Masters of the Universe is very, still very popular and everything. But for whatever reason, it just didn't take off that well with the fan base. And I was hoping that maybe that would be a different story for this new line, that even though it's a smaller scale, which there have been people complaining they wish I had gone with the original scale. But this day and age, with things being so expensive, I knew I'm more of a fan of the smaller scale anyway. But also when you get into wanting to do play sets, vehicles, that type of stuff, the smaller scale puts you at an advantage cost-wise to actually make something like that happen. So that's why I chose the smaller scale.
Yeah, I have to say, actually, looking at the prices, that was one of the things that surprised me because these are very affordable. And, we're talking about a fairly small company. So typically that means, smaller production run, higher cost to make these things.
Mm-hmm.
And, a good example of that would be the Four Horsemen's Mythic Legions lines, or even
Right.
Super Sevens toys. They're like $45 a piece and up.
Mm-hmm.
That's brand new. You're about less than $25 per figure, which is, I think, pretty great.
Right. Well, the first Wave 1 and the Wave 1.5, I was able to sell those at $23. But now there was a significant price increase on this Wave 2. And I know there was a lot of sticker shock when people saw that. But it just boils down to when I initially had that line quoted, it was with a factory that I didn't ended up not working with. So I had to go off their original quote numbers when I was promoting this. Had that actually come to fruition through these other factories, I probably could have kept that lower price point. But with the factory I'm at now, there was a cost increase, and this would have been the first Sectaurs project that I would have done from scratch with this particular factory. So those costs had to go up. Plus, there was issues of license renewals, which adds to the cost. And unfortunately, with Kickstarter, you also have to deal with fees that they collect, fees that BackerKit collects, and all that has to be factored into this. So it gets up there quickly.
I mean, the story of ZICA Toys has very much been a learning experience for you as you go along. You're picking up new things, and
Hmm.
that's again, it's for a person who's just basically a one-person operation. I think it's an important thing to talk about and let other folks out there know about because you've had successes, you've had some setbacks. As we mentioned, you just had as we're doing this interview today, just a little while ago, the second wave Kickstarter did not successfully reach its funding goal, but I don't think that's a failure in any means. I think it's just a learning thing
Oh,
for
oh
you, right?
no, that's the way I see it, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's a pretty great thing to discuss, and I'm glad you're open to talking about those kinds of things.
Oh yeah.
But let's talk about the successful thing that's Sectaurs because I know people love them. I haven't heard anything bad about these figures ever, in fact. So I don't know if you have a few in hand, but would you mind kind of showing us, telling us about what's available right now on ZICA Toys' website?
Well, right now, from Wave 1, the General Spidrax and Dargon are almost gone. They're almost sold out. Same way with actually the Royal Guard figures are completely sold out. The Skull Soldier is almost sold out. The only two figures from Wave 1 that I have a pretty healthy stock of are Zach and Mantor, which to me and I've noticed this trend before with toy lines. It's funny. It's these characters you would all consider to be main characters, from the line. For whatever reason, Mantor and Zach were the low sellers. I mean, much lower than Dargon and Spydrax, and which again I've seen that trend, but it's odd to me that if these are all considered the main characters, you would think people would want all of them, but that's not proven to be the case with these. And I think in Wave 2, I was constantly hearing everybody wanted the Skulk character. That was the one everybody was clamoring for. So, so odds are, had I done a Kickstarter just for that particular figure, it probably would have funded. But then it kind of kills I just want to say enthusiasm to me anyway for doing the line because you want to offer all of those characters. But unfortunately, it's the demand is kind of all over the place for some of these things, which that's a hurdle that's hard to overcome because you want to try to to offer a full line of figures. So
And have you found the trend with these collectors to be more towards having army builders to work with?
yeah, the army builders are definitely what's popular, but and for a Kickstarter, typically a troop builder is what you need to get the line, to get it funded. But in this particular case, like for Wave 2, there's just no troop builders available, and there's license restrictions that prevent me from just coming up with a character out of the blue. I can't do that, which is totally understandable. It's not my property. I shouldn't have that type of creative freedom. But so yeah, that was a big hurdle with this particular wave, as there were no troop builders for it. So.
Now, aside from the Sectaurs license, you also have the Comic Adventures Heroes line, which is pretty
Mhm.
interesting as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, that initially started as a dedicated Captain Action line, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Captain Action. That's even before my time. That was back in the '60s, mid '60s. But it started out as Captain Action, but then again, getting to what you just pointed out about troop builders and stuff like that, I knew that I had to get more SKUs in this thing to make it successful. So I introduced a couple other characters that were originally Mego properties, which were Action Jackson and a Jet Jungle. And then I did the character of Captain Evil. Actually, I came up with that. I came up with the Dr. Evil's henchman figures and the Strike Force Trooper, all in an effort to make a troop builder type uh, part. But so that transformed that into the Comic Adventure Heroes line, and I got that from the Mego line, which was the small. They were called Mego Pocket Heroes at one point. They were also called Comic Action Heroes. So that's where the idea to spin it off into something like that came from. And actually, I'm working on a wave 2 for that one, which will hopefully be out sometime this year, later this year.
I think I probably already know the answer to this, but can you tease who might be joining in that line?
Well, we did another version of Action Jackson, and all the other characters are subtle takes on a line called Super Joe, which Hasbro put out back in the day. Believe that was like a 9-inch line, but it was a spin-off of a G.I. Joe. They tried to do like a science fiction type, monster alien type thing. And a few of the characters are kind of different takes on some of those characters, but not those characters specifically. And then a couple original characters I kind of came up with, being able to use existing parts and digital assets that I have already.
So, Craig, I also know you're doing something related to Eagle Force. Can you kind of explain a little bit about what's going on with that license?
Eagle Force, I'm partnered up with Fresh Monkey Fiction on that particular IP. They are the ones that are mainly handling the 4-inch modern line that's just getting ready to be released. The figures are on the boat and on their way over here. I am using that IP to launch an vintage style O-ring figure line, very similar in design to the vintage Hasbro G.I. Joes that were the O-ring figures. Starting off with just one figure, no Kickstarter involved with this one. This is all out of pocket, just to kind of test the waters, because I do know there are a few other companies that are planning to test the waters with this type of a format, this particular aesthetic, and I'm trying my best to be the first one out of the gate. So hopefully that'll be the case, because tooling's being worked on right now. I hope to have a tooling sample by the end of this month, and if that's approved, next will be a paint master, and after that it gets scheduled for production. So hopefully I'll have that out, fairly soon.
Yeah, that's very exciting, because I'm a big fan of those 3 3/4-inch GI Joes with the O-rings. So
Oh yeah,
it's really cool to see them making a comeback in this way.
yeah. We're well, for Eagle Force, there was a few characters that I picked from the new line that I was going to try to do in this particular O-ring format, but I just want to start off again trying to playing it safe, so to speak, with this one, which is a troop builder. So we'll see how people like it. Hopefully it'll go over well, and then there'll be more.
Yeah, it seems like that's a good way to do it. I mean, again, you've done now a few Kickstarters, so you've kind of got an idea of how things are funded, how things work, and it sounds like you
Right.
definitely learned a lot. So,
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely see some really good stuff happening with this lineup.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
uh, Now, you also do some minifigures as well as on your website, right?
Yeah, I thought, again, that's something else I would test the waters with a little bit. And unfortunately, they didn't do as well as I'd hoped. But it was a fun experience. The guy that I had work on him, he does a phenomenal job with the sculpts. He does a line of figures that are based on fictional and real life people from Oklahoma, celebrities and what have you. But he's done real well with his. But I really like the look of his sculpts and everything. They're kind of stylized, kind of cartoonish and stuff. So, and there was an IP that I'm trying to get out there called Hamilton's Invaders, which was based on an old Remco Toys line. So I thought this would be a way to get the IP out there and do it with a relatively low cost, because it wasn't, because they're so small, the tooling and the unit costs weren't that high on these. So that was a way of kind of doing this somewhat safely, at least from a financial standpoint. And a lot of people, that there is a lot of excitement over the IP, but the minifigures, I guess the market for those, I'm sure it's relatively big, but these particular ones didn't do as well as I'd hoped. But I was happy with at least the reaction to bringing the IP back. So
And you've got some really interesting IPs overall here. I mean, again, we're talking about you've got Sectaurs, you've got all these different comic adventure characters, you've got this
Mhm,
stuff as well, and you've got the upcoming Eagle Force things that you're working with.
mhm.
So there's a lot of cool stuff going on with Zyka. So congratulations to you. And again, even though we're doing this again, as I mentioned, the Kickstarter didn't meet its goal this time, but it sounds like there's a lot more cool stuff on the way. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping this doesn't discourage you at all.
No, no, I'm in this for the long haul. Maybe some people at this point would call me a glutton for punishment, but I believe it or not, I enjoy what I'm doing, and I still want to make a go of this because I think eventually it'll get to the point where this will be 99.9% fun and 0.1% headache.
That's
That's
the
the goal
process.
anyway. Yeah.
So for our audience today who wants to find out more about ZICA Toys, where can they go?
Well, the website www.zicatoys.com. That's the main site, which is primarily just the online store, but it has links to Instagram and Facebook. So that's where I'm at. And there is you can sign up for an email uh, newsletter type thing on the website as well. So
Well, Craig, thank you so much for chatting with us today. Appreciate your time. And again, folks, check out the website, check out all the Sectaurs, check out the social media, see the upcoming Eagle Force things and all the O-ring toys that are on the way as well. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff again coming from Zyka. So make sure you don't miss any of it. So this is Matthew from Nerd News Today. Thank you for checking out Nerd News Today Toy Fair 2021. But stick around, we've got a whole lot more planned coming up later today.